Never did we think we'd see the day that Pokemon would be so heavily compared to The Legend of Zelda, yet here we are in part 3 of what seems to be a close race so far. I'm not here to waste anyone's time or my own, so let's jump right into continuing the epic comparison series of two beloved games. With Breath of the Wild currently ahead by 1 point with a score of 9, while Legends trails with a score of 8, we're going to jump right into the category of story. Breath of the Wild deals with fairly common tropes. It's a post-apocalyptic world in a video game. Standard. There's a big baddie who's responsible for everything, and it's obvious we need to take him down from the beginning. Standard. We play as a chosen hero who defies all odds to win the good fight despite not nearly being as skilled or special compared to some of the other members of the cast. Standard. There's a woman who, despite all her brains and power, is a damsel in distress because we play as a male character who needs to save her. Very tragically standard. And a huge downgrade from Zelda's previous empowered personification in nearly every previous game. Seriously, they may as well have changed her name to Princess Peach here, as the best she could muster is to chill with the main villain and send a message for you to come help her. Why, thanks, Zelda! These standard tropes aside, there are some enjoyable aspects about Breath of the Wild's story. I find it super cool that the Guardians were an ultimate piece of weaponized technology actually created by the Sheikah to fight evil, yet Ganon found a way to turn every single one of them to his side. That's a pretty darn scary scenario. It's also cool that this Link actually existed 100 years ago, but was forced into a slumber and wakes up to find everything he's known and loved to be dead and gone. There's a character that accidentally reversed her aging process, that was cool. And Urbosa is the empowered female we deserved more of in today's day and age for a Zelda game. It's too bad she died though, would've really sucked to have her outshine Link in the present day. There are a few more cool aspects to the story of Breath of the Wild, but all in all, the main story and structure is as tropey as it gets. It's literally, there's a bad guy, he destroyed everything, go on a collectathon to gain the power to stop him, and then you do. The end. I love Breath of the Wild, but most people would agree the story isn't exactly one of its strong points. Pokemon Legends Arceus' story is a definite departure from its series, but not necessarily one that's brand new in the grand scheme of entertainment or even just video games in general. However, what makes Legends Arceus' story shine is its use of mystery to keep the narrative engaging. From the start, you're presented with a lot of questions, and the only way to answer them is to continue the story for the game. The best part? Most of the biggest answers don't even come until the post-game, meaning more people will be inclined to finish Legend's story over Breath of the Wild's. The answers are pretty darn satisfying too, but I won't spoil them in case anyone hasn't experienced it for themselves. Essentially, something is making Pokemon go crazy all around the region, and we need to find out who or what it is. Is it Arceus? Is it the Time and Space Legendaries? Is it Silene? Is it Komodo, Giratina, the Pearl Clan, the Diamond Clan, the Clothing Shop Lady? Y'all think I'm playing right now, but wait till you see the betrayals that pour in late into the game. Like I was saying along the way, you're just constantly meeting characters and Pokemon whom you never really know if you can trust. I had so many theories as I played for who the villain was, and who may even be in cahoots with them. I was pleasantly surprised by the plot twists, and even events and scenarios that played out over the course of the story. It may not be the most masterfully woven narrative in video games, but it was one that I will definitely look back on fondly for years to come. It was the most intimate journey with my Pokemon ever. It was dark, mysterious, and satisfying. It fleshed out the lore of the franchise to a high degree, and for the Pokemon franchise especially, this new approach to storytelling was far better than anything Game Freak has done in the past. Even Black and White and Black and White 2. Pokemon Legends Arceus wins this category for its innovation for the franchise and constant use of mystery to engage the player into finishing its story. The score is now 9-9. Now that the two games are tied, let's move on to music. Anyone who's played both of these games most likely already knows who's going to win this, but let's take our time to explain why the winner wins this category. Zelda Breath of the Wild was a huge innovation in music for a video game. Nothing quite like it exists to this day. When you're playing, ambient music plays, gentle strokes on a piano that match the mood of the journey. The more intense things get, the more the piano plays. The less intense, the less the piano sounds echo. Sometimes even halting completely. Wow, it's crazy.
Hi. Do you have the score to do, like, right now?
Oh, yeah! Yeah, I definitely got that ready. I got it here.
Love to hear it.
Yeah! Oh boy, I've been working real hard on that.
Sure you have, yeah.
Hold on. Yep, got it. Here's the score to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Like, this will be just when you're walking around, so it's like, I don't want it to be too much. You know? So it's just, you're just walking around, all of a sudden it's just like...
Can you give me about
So it'll be like a little bit, it'll just be a little bit. And maybe if you're on a horse, it'll be like... Oh, don't get crazy!
Okay, but seriously, where are the melodies? I don't hear them anywhere. This franchise, it's known for its music, and you took that? Wait a minute. Oh god, no! No, this isn't what I meant! Make it stop! My ears are bleeding! Yeah, Breath of the Wild soundtrack kinda sucks. I get dynamic music, and that's fine, I guess, but when I enter a town or a safe zone like a ranch, I at least expect to be treated to a pleasing melody. Where are the bops? Literally, the only civilization's music I can stand are the Rito Tribe's village and the freaking destroyed Hyrule Castle. Come on! Hey, at least the 4 main dungeons also had good music, but you know what game actually treats itself with some decency and respect using its OST? Pokemon Legends Arceus. Seriously, every song in this soundtrack is a banger. The melodies be on fire and the background bass and techno be like wow, like some freaking dubstep just hopped up in here with some Nintendo melodies. This is a lovable open world soundtrack. Some gosh darn melodies to keep me occupied no matter the scenery I'm in. 2 music tracks for every area in the game, plus 2 at night regardless of the area. Then you also got Noble Area's music, dungeon music, Jubilife Village's dynamic theme, scenario music, the battle music? Okay, I'll give you this. The clan village themes are kind of meh. Okay, yeah, I admit it. They took way too much inspiration from Breath of the Wild for this. And you know what? Yeah, sometimes there's no music, which makes me bang my head all the harder to the beat when it finally hits again. Yeah, I don't think any of you can deny Pokemon Legends Arceus beats Breath of the Wild with literally no effort here, putting it in the lead by 1 point currently. 10-9. And yet, here's the slippery slope. The remaining categories will be much tougher for Pokemon Legends. Yeah, we're going to dive into more game design categories, and since we just talked about music, what better design to talk about than sound design? Zelda Breath of the Wild, like most new iterations of Zelda, has completely new sound effects. The audio levels are even, with nothing being particularly loud or quiet in a vacuum, and the use of distance allows the sound to travel at appropriate audio levels as well. Sounds are satisfying, being a perfect balance of realistic, yet cartoonish. Runes sound futuristic. Even the bombs that we blow up have a technological sound to them. Swords swiping and clashing get the point across, and sounds always match up with what we're seeing. Not much more to say here, for now. Pokemon Legends Arceus is the same, with a great blend of realistic and cartoonish sounds. Subjectively, I personally love the sound effects in Pokemon more. They're just more endearing to me because they just match this fantasy world so perfectly in my eyes. But objectively, they don't do anything particularly better or worse than Zelda Breath of the Wild. Everything I mentioned in Breath of the Wild sound design stands up here as well. But, and this is a big but, there is one deciding factor that gives one of these games a huge edge over the other. Yep. The use of sound for dialogue. Now, where Pokemon Legends Arceus goes so wrong is by not having any sound emit from the screen when dialogue is being presented. I'm not even saying we need full-on voice acting, and I'm more than happy to give Legends its props for being the only mainline Pokemon game besides Black and White, Black 2 and White 2 to have voices emit from human characters at all. even if they are just grunts this time around, but even a simple addition of just having sound bits play when text displays on the screen would have made many players around the world feel all the more invested in the story and characters. Just look at the Ace Attorney series. The entire game is dialogue without voice acting, yet people grow attached to the stories and characters, and don't get bored while playing this whole game that's just text being thrown at us. Part of this is because when the text displays across the screen, different pitches of sound bits play as each letter comes out. Heck, even the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series does this. Or you can go to some other approaches, such as Okami in Banjo-Kazooie, where completely different sounds are repeated depending on the character who's talking. Meanwhile, Zelda Breath of the Wild includes voice acting for the first time in the series. Sure, it's not in every bit of dialogue, but even when you're not in a major story beat that includes the voice acting, characters grunt, sigh, and even say short words when delivering lines. This has been the case for 3D Zelda games for a long time, and it works for a reason. Legends could have at least done this too, especially considering how story heavy it was. All this is to say, there's a clear winner here, although I am tempted to tie this round simply because Game Freak finally shut Pikachu's obnoxious trap up and gave him his 8-bit cry back. Seriously, this is one of the best decisions Game Freak has made. Zelda Breath of the Wild wins hands down in this category, tying the score up yet again with a 10-10. Now, to discuss the map and level design. Pokemon Legends Arceus has some of the best map and level design when compared to other mainline 3D outings in the series. I suppose what a lot of areas are missing are more secluded, memorable landmarks along the way though. Sure, there are big things like the lakes, a giant tree, a destroyed temple, and even a gravestone for a deceased noble Pokemon, but I suppose I wanted a bit more scattered throughout. A lot of plains and paths are fairly samey, and if you ask me, the layout is typically too open. If every area in Pokemon Legends Arceus had been more like the Coronet Highlands in its layout, I probably would have enjoyed them all a lot more. Don't get me wrong, I love the locations and levels in Pokemon Legends, but once you see what they could have done, being the more complex Coronet Highlands, it really feels like all the others are missing something. Let's explore those missing ingredients more by talking about Breath of the Wild's layout. What makes the level and map design of Breath of the Wild so amazing is the elevation, variation, and inclusion of smaller set pieces to craft a greater whole. Because of these elements, Breath of the Wild has a much more mysterious air regarding its exploration. You're always questioning what's around the corner or what's just over the hill. Oftentimes, you're treated to some pretty cool spots too. I can vividly remember a few set areas right now off the top of my head. There are just so many small secluded spots in Breath of the Wild that form a greater overall whole, even when you're not in one of the many creative towns and cities the game has to offer. I would have loved to explore things like this with my Pokemon, but for now, that's still not quite in reach. The map and level design category goes to Zelda Breath of the Wild with 0 arguments. 10-11. Once again, since we're on the topic of map and level design, it's also worth noting the map sizes of both games. Even when putting all the areas together from Pokemon Legends Arceus, the map is still but a fraction of the size of Breath of the Wild's, so not only is Legends map in general inferior, but it's also much smaller. Another easy point for Breath of the Wild. 10-12. Finally, to finish off the topic of the map and world comparisons, we should discuss the world density. We've already covered that Pokemon Legends Arceus is not only inferior in its level design and its size, but there's also no denying that the density of assets per square inch is also much lower. Breath of the Wild has grass blades galore, large and small. A huge variety of vegetation exists even in just one glance in any direction when out in the open. And there's often also particles blowing in the wind, interactable objects of varying degrees, enemies, NPCs walking around or interacting with the environment, and, as I mentioned earlier, those varied little spots that etch into your memory for how unique and secluded they are also pretty damn common. Yes, the density of Breath of the Wild far surpasses that of Pokemon Legends, which hosts about half the number of grass blades, even in its more grassy areas. typically lacks particles blowing in the wind unless you're in a specific area or specific weather conditions, has about a third of the interactable objects as Breath of the Wild, and they're typically only interactable in one or two ways. Legends lacks 98% of the NPCs you'd have seen existing in Breath of the Wild, and here in Legends, all they do is stand still, not interacting with the world at all. And lastly, Legends hosts way more open, flat, empty areas than Breath of the Wild, with more memorable landmarks being much fewer and far between. Zelda Breath of the Wild wins hard in this category as well, giving its first 3-point lead so far with a score of 10-13. There is one more episode left in this race to the finish, and it's not looking good for Pokemon Legends Arceus. As you let me know your thoughts so far down in the comments, join me next time as we discuss the many miscellaneous aspects that go a long way towards making a game feel complete and meaningful, such as customization and resource management. Until next time everyone, I've been Johto Jonny. Peace out.